104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Well, here we are on a beautiful Sunday. Not doing a weather show, but talking about sports. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. I'm the cat wrangler, Joe Westen, joined by Ned Reynolds, our chief cat. How are you, Ned?
Doing well, thank you. How could you not be when it's just a beautiful day? It's cooled off a little bit and avoided any kind of destructive storms. In fact, did we even get any?
Did you lose any trees?
No, but I did lose power.
Boy, you were fortunate, man. That storm came out of nowhere. What about you, Alec? You lose any trees?
No trees, just a lot of little limbs down, but nothing the yard couldn't handle. Unfortunately, kept the power. We were thankful for that.
I was out at Highland on Tuesday, I think it was, and there was a pine tree that was completely uprooted. I lost a lot of trees out there. Anyway, this is not a weather show. I guess I should point that again. This is a sports show. And, Josh is not here to give us the breakdown, but I guess we should start out with that the women's national soccer team eliminated from the World Cup.
They have said sayonara. I believe, did they play in Melbourne? Is that where it was?
I know it's Australia, New Zealand, but I don't know which city they were in.
They played most of their early games in New Zealand, but I think this one may have been in Australia. Not that it made any difference. So they do lose. They being the USA loses 0-0. Now, he said, wait a minute, how can you lose that? Well, penalty kicks is what they lost on. That's part of the rules of soccer. And they did not get I think 5-4. Is that what it was?
5-4.
5-4. Yep. Sweden beats them, and that knocks the USA out of it. We were talking about that earlier. I'm not a soccer aficionado as such, but this is a team. All the reporters and our media has a tendency to be a little chauvinistic. Painted this team, two-time champions, going for a third time, unprecedented in soccer, as being a really strong, virtually unbeatable team. Well, they aren't, and they weren't. And I think the inexperience on this team, missing a lot of their old players from the past, really did catch them. And too bad, but hey, that's part of athletics.
Yeah, and it was just the offense. It struggled. They had a very long, I believe I saw this morning, it was over 200-minute drought of scoring to end their World Cup run.
Yeah, the previous match was 0-0.
Yeah, they just couldn't get them. They have great defense, only one goal allowed in the 4 matches they play. That's winning formula right there. They just were having trouble getting the score. And as I watched them, it just seemed, the talent's there, the teamwork wasn't. It just seemed a lot of hero ball, let me take it and drive it in and make the miraculous goal. And it got them farther than most teams could say playing that way would. I think that's a testament to how good they could be. And, they got a lot of youth. They had a couple starters that are under 22, like 21 to 23 years old. I don't think they're going anywhere, which, is good to see because on our women's side, they're up there with the world elites, while on the men's side, it's just not quite the same. They're well behind the European teams, and so it's fun to see them perform. I'm sad to see they're out. It was a good effort, and, you hate to lose it in penalties, but winning 2 in a row is exceptional. Winning 3 in a row, near impossible. You just got to appreciate what has happened and recognize that you're just going to get beat sometimes.
Well, I'm curious to see what this does for the U.S. ratings for TV, whether it just plummets completely because the women's team's out now. But I also, I think worldwide women's soccer, this does a lot for it because the U.S. teams have been dominant for a while. But in the U.S., this is a major setback. This is, I think people expected them to just win.
Don't forget now that Sweden beat the USA in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And back in, was it 2016?
2016,
yep. And I think they
on penalties.
Is that what it was? 3-0?
It was like they beat them on penalty kicks.
Same thing. But the European teams are coming on. As you pointed out, Alec, the USA men's team far behind. That is because men's soccer is far advanced worldwide than men's soccer in the USA is. Yes, we've had good teams, but it has to take a backseat and will in the foreseeable future to football and the other major sports in this country. But it doesn't internationally. That's why it is such a big deal. But for the ladies, no, it is much more equitable, and probably they'll be back. They'll be back in time. Keep in mind, though, the World Cup for the men is here.
Yes,
well, it's here,
and that's, 2 years away?
Along with Canada and Mexico. But yeah, 2 years away.
2 years away. And, soccer's good and solid right here in the state of Missouri. I mean, part of the games in the World Cup will be played in Kansas City, I believe.
Arrowhead Stadium.
Yep. That's right. And then, of course, St. Louis now has a soccer franchise, and the team's drawing extremely well and playing really good football, as they like to say, around the world. You're listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Alex Scott with us today. Our good buddy Josh Roberts off, and we don't know where he's at, but he's not here today. So let's get a first-hand report from Alec. He was at the game last night, the St. Louis Cardinals, Colorado Rockies. First of all, what's the mood there in St. Louis? I mean, obviously the Cardinals threw up the white flag this week.
Yeah, and it was the right decision being sellers at the trade deadline. It just, got to look at yourself in the mirror and realize this isn't going to happen this year and do the best thing for your team going forward. Moon the stadium, still good. The fans that are there are still excited, still want to be there. It could be a product of it being the Rockies. It could be a product of the season, likely a product of both combined. But there was definitely a lot of empty seats up in those upper sections. I'm used to seeing a bit more of a crowd, especially on a Saturday night in August. But, it is what it is at this point. It's tougher to shell out the money to go to a game whenever the team's not performing as well. And even indicative of this, I've been to 3 games this year. I've parked in the same parking lot 3 times, and the price has gone from 40 to 20 to 10. So we're winning on the parking prices as we go, but I would rather the team be well and pay a little extra in parking. But
you've reached it when they pay you to park.
Yes, exactly. Here you go. There's $5.
We'll chauffeur you up. So it was, again, the people that were there were in good spirits. The crowd was excited for what was going on, and we caught a good game. The Mats pitched well. The offense showed up. I hated, even I saw a great play in the outfield by the Rockies center fielder. You hate to see it go against you, but every once in a while you just enjoy watching things like that happen. But it was good. I was glad to be there, but probably my last time this year, and looking forward to going again when I see what the 2024 Cardinals look like.
I think they'll probably be a better team. That's not to say they'll be a contending team next year, but I think they'll be better. Really saw an interesting little note today, reading some of the scribes from St. Louis. Now, the trade deadline's come and gone. You can't trade and you can't pick up somebody on the waiver list who has been on a major league roster. You can't pick them up. That's all done. But it doesn't say that you can't sign free agents who are not on somebody's 40-man roster. So our good friend, former Missouri State Bear, former Springfield Cardinal and St. Louis Cardinal, former Milwaukee Brewer, former San Diego Padre, Luke Voigt, opted out of his contract with the Syracuse Chiefs on Thursday. He did not. It was a New York Mets minor league contract, but that's a minor league contract. You're not on the 40-man roster. He opted out, and the writer for St. Louis said, hey, why not take a chance with him? Bring him on. Let's see what he has, which they can do. Of course, it means sending somebody back to the minor leagues or cutting somebody from the 40-man roster. But let's see what he can do. Bring him on here. The guy's a home run hitter, although he didn't have any for the Brewers this year. That's why they let him go. But I'll be interested to see if Voigt does or can make a deal. He's 32 years old, and that would probably be an extenuating factor in signing him to any kind of long-term deal. But he wants to play, and he can play, and I think that would be very interesting. They do. The thing about the Cardinals is they don't need power. They have that. I think, in all honesty, and this is being critical, that they need a change in philosophy as to how they approach it on offense. They're putting a lot in this launch angle and things like that. And you see guys up there swinging for home runs.
Yeah.
They ain't going to win for you. I don't care. It looks great and all that, like the slam dunk. It's one run. And when you don't have somebody on base and you're hitting those homers, what was the game against the Minnesota Twins? That the Cardinals won, I think, 7-4, if I'm not mistaken, and 3 of their 4 runs, I may have to be correct, maybe 2 of the 4, whatever it was, were solo home runs. Come on, that doesn't get it.
Oh, they lost on, I believe, Friday night they lost. They hit 4 home runs, but 3 of them were solos, and then, of course, Adam Wainwright allows 7 runs in 3 innings. That's a losing recipe, but 4 home runs, 3 solos, and, that's, like you said, it's not winning. It's not as bad as, I think it was 2 years ago, one of the better Angel stats. They hit 7 home runs in a game, all solo shots, and lost.
Solo.
Yeah, well, that's because baseball's constructed like softball teams these days. I mean, basically, you're looking at you're trying to put 9 guys out there that can hit home runs, and it's amazing how teams have transitioned. Usually, and Ned can back me up on this, your corner players were your home run hitters. Your first and third baseman, your left and right field, they were your home run hitters. Everybody else was table setters. Now does that shortstop hit 20 home runs on the season? Well, he's no good if he doesn't hit 20 home runs on the season. You were happy if you got double digits out of your shortstop in the old days. I mean, you were looking for table setters.
And that is what is missing from the game, in my opinion. The winning teams you will see play it. Yes, it's categorized as small ball. It not necessarily is that, but it's getting your men on base, getting them in scoring position, advancing them. The sacrifice is all but gone anymore. But nonetheless, we'll still follow the game the way it is.
And, those teams as well, another thing they do, put the ball in play, keep the strikeouts down. Good things happen when the ball goes into play. You never know if the fielder's going to biff it or overthrow it, or you just don't know. But you do know what happens if you swing and miss. You just go back to the dugout.
Yep, it is a changed world, and we're still adjusting to it. It may take us a while. Ned, break it down for us. Anybody exciting that you feel like, well, this is a guy that could contribute to the Cardinals in the near future out of all the trades that they made?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we had a game on television on Friday night on KYCW, the Springfield Cardinals in Northwest Arkansas. And Thomas Sajasi, the kid they got from the Texas Rangers, played second base. And he has, ever since he's been up here, the trade deadline was Tuesday, so he's been here since Wednesday. He has 16 home runs, 15 of them with the Frisco Rough Riders, 1 down here in the short time he's been here. But very impressive. Not physically. He's kind of a wiry guy, maybe 5'11", 6 feet, somewhere around there. Defense at second base, extraordinary. Made an outstanding over-the-shoulder diving catch in the game on Friday night. His bat wasn't especially a part of the ball game on Friday, but it has been. He has a very good swing. He's one of the Texas League leaders in hits, and I'm very impressed with him. Is he a Nolan Gorman? Is he better than Nolan Gorman? Probably not right now, but he's just a kid. He's out of high school. He signed as a high school player, and I do like him. The pitcher who they got is not with the team. He's undergoing shoulder rehab, I think is what it is. Those two came from Frisco. The other two who the Cardinals got have gone to Memphis. I'm especially interested in the Dutch pitcher who they got, and we talked about him last week. Robersa is his name, Sem Robersa. Now, he's born in the Netherlands and all that, but pretty much raised in this country and around baseball. He can pitch, and he may, in fact, be a big help. He's not a flamethrower, but he is a very crafty pitcher who does accrue the strikeouts. I'm anxious to see what these guys can do and how good the Cardinals deals are. I think they are pretty good. I think they're good, solid additions to the ball club.
When you look at the overall trade deadline, to me it was a big
Well, it was.
because really the are really only 2 big names moved. They were from the Mets, Scherzer and Verlander. And it seemed like Texas almost remade their pitching rotation by getting Scherzer, who can slot into a number 1 slot or number 2 on that team. And then you got Flaherty to go there too. And if Alec has always said, when Flaherty's right, he's right.
It was Montgomery that went to Texas.
Oh, sorry, Montgomery. I'm sorry.
Montgomery's been really good this year. So they remake it, and I think I'm happy for those guys to get a shot at a winning club this year. And I'm happy to see what the Cardinals got back. Arms, just more arms. This team is at least 4 or 5 between starters and back and bullpen guys away from being actually competitive. So seeing these guys coming in and start growing them up, I think that's really good for the future for the Cardinals. So I'm happy with who they got. But yeah, the trade deadline as a whole, like you said, Scherzer and Verlander, big names, and then there was a lot of little deals here and there, but no, the big household names. There wasn't a Juan Soto deal like there was last year.
No, but Flaherty going to the Baltimore Orioles in fact, he's already had a start for them now.
Yeah, and he did well,
and he won. He'll win. He's one of these guys who needs to be motivated, and I think he will be with a team that's obviously contending and may, in fact, be World Series bound. You never can tell. As far as the Cardinals are concerned in the winter, their front office or whomever it is that puts together a potential starting rotation going to have some work to do. I right now put Matz in there. And, of course, you would have to put, Miles Michaelis. He would be in that rotation. And from there on in, I think it's probably a crapshoot.
Yep.
So let me ask you guys this. Who do you think should put together the Cardinals roster to the next year? Should it be Dell or HP? I wondered about that one, see if that would go over. Baltimore really helped themselves with the Flaherty trade, and I don't know if either one of you took my advice and watched Baltimore play. They are extremely good on defense.
That's a nice team.
That's a very good team. Could win the World Series this year. My team didn't do anything. They picked up a couple of middling relievers, and that was about it. And the message that they got there was, we're good enough to win with what we have right now. And I don't agree with that, having watched them play.
It's the Yankees. They could get real hot. They have not had a hot streak this summer. They're due for one. And down the stretch, come on, they're the New York Yankees. They are accustomed to having late season surges. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them emerge as a very strong playoff contender.
All 5 of the teams in the American League East have above 500 records. The last place team right now is the Boston Red Sox, 57-53. And would you guys agree that the baseball deadline being kind of is that there are so many teams, because so many teams are in contention right now.
That's probably right, yeah.
The talent level on the sorry, Ned. The talent level on the teams that are out of contention, nobody wants to touch.
There's the problem. There's a great disparity between the haves and the have-nots in Major League Baseball, and the contending teams do. They know what needs to be corrected with their ball club and what can push them through to an ultimate postseason berth. But who are you going to get? Is there somebody out there who is another team is willing to part with, who can really boost you? And the answer is no, there is not.
And it's tough, I wouldn't be very motivated to sell if I'm a team like Boston or New York because, I have a winning record. I'm a winning team. Why am I selling? So I should go buy, but then there's not a lot to buy. The Cardinals were one of the anomalies, and that's why they're one of the most active teams at the trade deadline. They didn't give up. I don't think you could consider them household names across broader Major League Baseball. Obviously, we know them here because they're our regional team. So that's why, we didn't get any groundbreaking. This is their number one prospect in the system in return, but we got really solid players in return for really good players going out. So it was a bit of a whimper. It's trade deadline's always a fun thing to speculate and, throw out ideas and things like that. But, not every year is it going to fall through.
Don't be misled by the postseason, and the Cardinals obviously not in contention right now, that the players are giving up. They are not, because these guys are playing for next year. Matt Liberatore, I think he has an awful lot to prove, a tremendous amount to prove. He didn't pitch well his last time out. And here's a guy who is vying for a start in the rotation. He better pitch well in his, probably 2 more August and maybe 4 in September starting berths. And if he doesn't, he may find himself in jeopardy, so to speak.
Yeah, like you said, it's Matz, it's Michaelis, it's a question mark. We really don't know what it's going to look like. I would hope at least 1 or 2 guys who can be starters are signed in the offseason at least, and then maybe you have your younger guys compete for that other one and then fill out the bullpen a little bit. With average pitching, I think this Cardinals team is right around or a little above 500. They have pitching in the basement, so their record shows it.
The offense is good. I don't think that needs any fine-tuning at all. The offense is right there. It's pitching, and pitching is defense. Mm-hmm. You've got to have that.
The other part of this, too, I would believe, is that the asking price for a lot of these players was pretty high. I know the Yankees had 4 guys that they said they're on the market. Starting pitcher Luis Severino has not pitched very well. Harrison Bader was also former Cardinal, or was on that list. Wandy Peralta was on that list, too. I forget somebody else was. And no takers. So I guess the asking price for these guys was pretty high, and I think that's probably pretty true across baseball right now, as everybody's kind of hoarding prospects in hopes of, hey, I'm either going to get better. But you look at teams like Baltimore, Toronto added a piece to get better. Texas, Houston added pieces to get better. Atlanta pretty much stood pat. The Dodgers had no takers, really. They didn't have any big trades. Neither did San Francisco. Milwaukee and Cincinnati, everybody stood pat. It was just those American League teams that added pieces to kind of help them out.
Joe, you bring up a very interesting point, too, but there is a guard against hoarding those players, and that guard is the Rule 5 draft, and you have that, and that's a player who's not on your 40-man roster, and you can only have 40 players, many of whom are already on the squad. Those players become eligible, and you see any number of them. We've seen them in the Texas League, well, not Texas League, but in the telecast that we've had this year, any number of Rule 5 players who have been competing for other teams, been picked up, and are pretty good ball players. There are hedges against that sort of thing.
Hottest team in baseball right now, Kansas City Royals, 73 over the last 10 games. Played some really good baseball. When we come back, we'll talk about, let's talk about that other team in Kansas City. I forget what their name is, but we'll talk about them because we got our first game coming up next Sunday.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Can you believe it? Football is here. We had our first preseason game Thursday night, the Hall of Fame game. Who played in that?
Cleveland and the New York Jets.
Did you watch any of it?
No.
What about you, Alec?
Oh, approximately 3 to 5 minutes while finishing up making dinner, and then it's like, all right, this was exciting for
That's done.
It's like real football, and then you watch for a minute, and you're like, is it real football? Nah, I'm getting out of here.
Well, the first game for the Chiefs is next Sunday. We'll be on the air at 10 a.m. I guess they have a noon start time. They play the New Orleans Saints.
In the Mercedes Superdome in New Orleans, it's a 12 noon game. It's a little unusual for an exhibition game on Sunday, a preseason game, but I think it's probably, since there are only 3 of them, to acclimate the teams to what they're going to be doing during the regular season, and that's playing for the most part at noontime. Not the Chiefs. They have a wide-ranging level of times they'll be kicking off during the course of the year, but it's a New Orleans home game, so that one starts at noontime, and yes, our pregame show is 10 o'clock.
You always used to count on the Chiefs playing at noon. They have 2 noon games during the regular season. Wow. Jacksonville in week 2, and then towards the end of the season, they'll take on the Raiders at noon. And but other than that, it's going to be all over the place. Like Ned said, there's a game that game that they're playing in Germany. It starts at 8:30 a.m. our time. We're not doing a Ned Talk. Or
you mean to tell me 6:30 a.m.? No, I don't think it's necessary.
I'm busy that day.
We won't do a Ned Talk for that one.
Furthermore, would anybody even be listening to us? I'm not even sure they are now.
Oh, yeah, there will be. Yeah, there's people listening to us. You're out there. I know you are. What do you think? What's the odds on Patrick Mahomes throwing a behind-the-back pass during the season?
Well, you never put any odds against what Mahomes is going to do. He's the best quarterback in pro football right now, but I would think it would have to be rather dire circumstances, and he would have to be in physical jeopardy if he threw one behind his back. In practice, it's fine. It looks good, but not in a regular season game.
Yeah, I saw it came across Bleacher Report the other day. Jaw dropping was the word that they used for it.
And you have the media covering this, and the media tends to practice a little hyperbole every so often.
Really,
like every day.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you think? I mean, do you one series for Patrick Mahomes, or do we see him at all on next Sunday?
Oh, I think he plays, and one series,
and
maybe even a quarter.
What about you, Alec?
I was leaning more towards a quarter. Now that there's one less preseason game, they only do 3. I think you start seeing them put those starters out there for a little longer from the jump because they only have a finite amount. I know this is a cohesive group. The offense is fairly similar to what it was last year, but you want to get those reps in because it's a very different, even in the preseason, it's a different feel. And, a lot of guys that come out there are competing for a job. So there is effort. It's just maybe not as much effort from the guys whose jobs are secure. So I'm thinking a quarter from all the starters, and then we see what the backups got.
Do you think the Chiefs carry 3 quarterbacks this year or just 2?
I would say Shane Buechele would be one, and then anybody else from there on in I think would be a stretch. Maybe none, and I must admit I don't know whether it counts when you have them on the practice squad or not. But they would have one down with the team that works out during the week who get paid. They have a pretty good salary. I would think they'd have one there. But on the regular squad, I'd say probably two.
The Chiefs, ESPN is projecting Blaine Gabbert in the 2 spot.
Gabbert could be there. I like Shane Buechele.
And Shane Buechele in the 3rd.
I think he has a lot of experience and Southern Methodist kid, and his dad was a big ball player just like Mahomes was. Probably that kind of acumen, that athletic acumen that could carry him and has in the past carried him to a pretty good success.
Chiefs had a suspension this week. You want to tell us about that, Ned?
This was a domestic assault from a year ago.
Okay.
And, is it 2 games? Is that what the –
6.
Oh, he's out for 6. This is the lineman who they got from the San Francisco 49ers. So, that puts a bit of a deficit in things. After all, I think probably in some fans' reaction, people on the offensive and defensive lines are interchangeable. Everybody's the same. No, they're not.
No.
There is a very big difference. So we'll see what that absence brings about. But Chris Jones, I think, has to be the major concern at the moment. I really think they'll come to some kind of an agreement. I would hope they would. But even if they don't, I really think Jones decides he's going to play big. He gets $19 million a year, and I don't give a damn what anybody says. That's a lot of money, folks. A lot of money.
That's Ned Reynolds walking around money.
Not hardly.
Well, it opens up a possibility that we're going to see the rookie King Felix play because he's slotted in the number 2 spot behind the guy that got suspended. I won't try to pronounce his name. I'll just butcher it.
It's Ahome or something.
Ahome?
Like
we're not going to try it. Let's not see here. 2 guys you won't see on Sunday will be Isaiah Pacheco and Kadarius Toney. Both of them are questionable. They're predicted to be ready for the season. I would suspect that Isaiah Pacheco is more likely to see him than you are to see Toney at the start of the season.
Toney just had surgery, so no, he will be out, and maybe even the start of the season might be a little bit in question, but certainly not far after that. It was there is no such thing as a minor surgical procedure, but this was arthroscopic. It was the meniscus that was removed, and you do, from an arthroscopic procedure, you do recover relatively quickly. And with the rehab they go through, he can heal up. So opening day may be in question, but from there on in, no.
Is there anybody or anything that you're interested to see as the Chiefs play out in this preseason? Anything you want to watch?
I just think how their offense operates with the cohesiveness. Of course, you're not going to see that certainly in the first game, maybe in the second. I would think in the third, probably you get ready for the season opener. I think, what do they have? Detroit Lions on.
Detroit Lions
Yep,
on.
But that's September 7th. The last exhibition is at the Packers. I've forgotten who it is, but it's August the 26th. So there is a lengthy 2 weeks before
Cleveland.
Oh, it's the Browns, is it? Okay.
Yep.
Cleveland Browns. And that's in Kansas City?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what date is it again? August 26th?
Yes.
Okay, the 26th until September 7th. That's a good 2 week off. So you may see extensive play from the regulars in that final game 3.
I love I'm on their schedule and it has the ticket prices. You can get tickets to the New Orleans preseason game for as low as $9. But if you want to go see the Detroit game, as low as $268, the difference between preseason and regular season ticket prices. So I'm interested to see how this whole shakeup happens with the new receiving core. I mean, this is pretty much the second year in a row where the Chiefs have had their card is starting over again with the receiving core. The only the only guy that's held over is Scantling. You can say Travis Kelce, but let's keep this to the receivers. Sky Moore is in for his second season. Justin Watson, the guy I'm kind of keeping my eye on to watch, is Richie James, who they got from the Giants. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch how that develops. And the other thing that I'm interested in too is this is the final year of his contract for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What happens with him? How they use him? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's why I say I think watching the offense and how cohesive they are is probably a key as to how the exhibition games go. You just pointed it out right there. A newer receiving core. Don't count. Kelsey is really a wide receiver / tight end. He's a hybrid is what he is, and he figures into that mix as a top receiver on that whole scheme of things. Of course, they won't play very much in game one, but Alec, would you agree that the receiving core and the way they run the football, which is probably going to be limited, are the keys to what we're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the offense goes through Mahomes and Kelsey. That's step one. But Reed's got a really good job of working up plays where I feel it doesn't matter quite as much who's running those routes. They're going to get one-on-one opportunities, and eventually you're going to, corners aren't going to hold up against that all day. And then even if they are, Kelsey's probably getting open anyway. Sure. So it's going to run that way. I'm interested to see how Tony holds up, if he can be the guy. I feel like all the talent is there to really do great things. It's just going to be a matter of, can his body hold up? Because so far the answer is no. But with Kelsey there, resting Pacheco probably for regular season, but he'll be there. And I'm with you, Joe. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is interesting because if they're going to carry him, they don't want him just to do nothing. Obviously depth is one thing, but this is a guy you spent a first-round pick on. He's probably walking out after this season, if I would guess. But the NFL's really adopted a running back by committee, and Pacheco's such a battering ram, there's a very real chance he misses some time this year. So you need guys who can step up and fill in.
Alec, they had that guy last year. Didn't play very much, Ron Jones. And the kid from Southern Cal, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, eventually ended up with the Dallas Cowboys and eventually end up suspended for a couple of games. But over and above that, you do have to have that depth there just in case. How much did he see action last year? Certainly wasn't very much.
No,
maybe
not very much.
A carry or two every other game or something like that.
Well, and, in the beginning of the year, Helaire was doing pretty well. He was scoring touchdowns. Even if the yardage wasn't there, he was a part of it. And then he got a little banged up and had some fumbles. And then Pacheco came on, and then McKinnon really came on too. And before you know it, it's just too crowded of a room, and that's modern NFL. See all the conversation going on right now about running back pay.
And McKinnon's still in there.
Yep. It's been a fairly quiet camp for the Chiefs. I mean, that aside, Frank Clark, the holdout right now, the suspension, Tony with the injury, and a couple of Travis Kelce fights, but it's been pretty quiet. There's not a lot to report there. So that's good news. We'll keep you abreast of everything that happens. When we come back, we'll talk about realignment in college football on Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Wonder if they offer scholarships for cornhole yet. Just a thought.
Joe, they're offering him for everything else. They might have this in there too.
Exactly. I saw somebody posted on Facebook the other day that if the highest paid person at your university is a college football or basketball coach, then you're not really a learning institution. You're ostensibly a sports franchise that has learning as kind of a sidebar to it. And, that's partially true. And money's talking right now because big conference realignment happened this weekend.
Huge in every single respect. And in a period of about 24 to 36 hours, you saw all sorts of, We'll start with the first ones, which was the move of Washington and Oregon. They're both going to the Big Ten Conference, the Big Ten, folks, and that will occur next year, the 2024 season. That's how quickly this is taking place. They were immediately followed, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours later, by the move of Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah to the Big 12. They're opting out. This just is a death knell to the Pac-12 Conference, which now has 4 teams remaining in it for 2024. 4 teams: California, Stanford, Washington State, Oregon State, and they may not be around when all this. You can't have a 4-team conference and have any kind of viability to it. So this is a major shakeup in college sports, the college athletic programs. It is not totally unexpected. Everyone thought this was probably going to happen when Southern Cal and UCLA pulled out of the Pac-12. Who else is going to follow? Well, obviously now it's Washington.
Everybody.
And Oregon. Yeah, the whole league is going. Now, why are they doing it? Here's one of the reasons. These teams, Washington and Oregon, opted out almost immediately after the Pac-12, I should say, had their meeting with the commissioner. The commissioner had this. Everybody's there. All the remaining teams are there, and they're hearing the new plan for this league. There was no new plan. The blockbuster TV contract that they had was with Apple TV, and it was going to bring about $36 million for each team. Whoa, that's a lot of money. But compared to what the Big Ten is paying, which is $54 million a year, and about to go to as high in the next few years as $90 million a year in TV revenue. And from there, who knows, maybe six figures. Is there even an option? Of course not. So if you get the invitation, which they had, those two teams bolt, and I suspect that there will be probably four others who bolt elsewhere as well. So TV money, gang, that's the way it all operates.
$90 million, that's Ned Reynolds money. And that's crazy.
Well,
that's really crazy.
That's today's society. It's based on TV, and if the TV money is there. I'm going to give you an example here. NBC, the Big Ten Conference has joined. NBC joins the Big Ten this year, and it's a kind of a multi-tiered deal for all of college football because NBC, Fox, and CBS will all carry the games. The key is that NBC gets the primetime games on Saturday night. That's right. It's Big Ten America Saturday Night Football. Now, where does Notre Dame figure into this mix? They're still on NBC. They have 2 years remaining on their contract. And it's a contract that pays Notre Dame about $26, $27 million a year. It's one school. They don't have to share it with anybody. But that's not very much at all. So when that contract opts out, they're going to get a whole lot more money from somebody else. Maybe it'll be NBC. Maybe it'll go up to $75 million or something like that for a singular entity. But again, it all is the big payoff. Think of what the Southeastern Conference has. They used to be, and I believe this year is their final year with CBS. I think it is. And then they opt out, and ESPN gets them. Okay, that's fine. That's good coverage. Pretty good money. Again, it all depends on your payoff from the conference. That's where the whole situation is going to end up, and it's going to end up with the Power 5 schools and some auxiliaries like Notre Dame and maybe the service academies, things like that, all morphing into a geographic conference or what they would call conferences, but an amalgam of football for the big-timers. The small-timers like Missouri State and South Dakota State and North Dakota State and people like that, great football, tremendous football, they're going to be out in the cold.
I would feel pretty good if I was in the Pac-12 right now because that contract that they got from Apple TV, they're splitting that four ways now. They're just, more money for all of us. But what do they do? I mean, we talked about this while we were getting ready for the show. Where do they look to kind of augment themselves now?
To a bigger conference, to a Pac-12. To a Big 12 or a Big 10.
So you think the Pac-12 just folds, or do they try to save themselves by pulling in some teams from smaller conferences?
That is probably what they're negotiating right now to see if that would be of any great value to them. Teams that would be available would include Boise State, San Diego State, Nevada, both Nevada and Nevada, Las Vegas, Wyoming, people of this caliber. But are they viable teams? Can a Washington State, Oregon State, California, and Stanford exist with schools like that and make it a big headliner? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get a lot of TV money out of that. What do you think, John?
Well, I think the Pac-12's always been playing from behind for time zones play a big deal. You know, you got games on the East Coast starting at 11 a.m. People are sitting down watching all day long, and then you got Pac-12 goes till 1 in the morning. And that's just not going to be for everybody. It's tough to compete that way. But, you know, the regionalized conferences are starting to look like very suspiciously gerrymandered voting districts. When you look at the way the Big Ten stretches from the Great Lakes along the coast down into Southern California, and it's like, okay, I guess that's technically a conference. But, like you said, it's all about the money, and that money is not going to go down. If you're already looking to double your money in TV just moving now, and then exponential growth is probably going to occur from there because, how do you not get more when you bring in teams like Oregon and, Washington? These are big schools. So it will be interesting to see if the Pac-12 tries to survive it with absorbing more or just disbanding, but this has been on the wall for a while in the Pac-12. They've been behind the eight ball in every sport and everything like that for quite a while. And then you said USC, UCLA was just kind of that first domino tip, and now we're seeing the rest of it fall.
It's also the Los Angeles TV market with those two, the Seattle TV market with the University of Washington, Portland with the University of Oregon, and then with Arizona and Arizona State, Tucson, which is small. But Phoenix is not, and that's where Arizona State is. So you get those two coming into the Pac-12. Hey, think of the viewership that you get, because both those schools, all those schools, especially the Los Angeles schools, have very, very big alumni groups that follow I'm talking about huge, and in the thousands, maybe millions, who follow those teams elsewhere. Look at where UCLA plays their home games, like the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And Southern Cal in the Coliseum. Come on, gang. Those are big stadia, and they are filled.
Rose Bowl is one of the biggest stadiums in the U.S. I mean, this has been predicted for many years, and now we're starting to see the fruits of it, that eventually college football, how many conferences do you think we'll end up with, 3 or 4?
Well, they're not going to be called conferences. They'll be called, maybe geographic.
Monsters.
I predicted 5, but I may have to amend that as well. A greater Northeast, a greater Northwest, a greater Southeast, a greater Southwest, and an amalgam in the Central. That may be 1 too many. It may be 4. But, again, it all depends on the lineup of teams that you're able to get into each division. Are they all going to win? Right now, I'd put on the greater Southeast.
Really quickly, who's the big winners, who's the big losers in this?
The TV networks. The TV networks are the big winners. The big losers are, unfortunately, the 1AA or FCS schools, the D2s, the D3s. I hope it does not put an end to the FCS schools having their one big payday against major universities. The Bears play Kansas, for instance.
Yeah.
Southeast Missouri plays Kansas State. South Dakota plays Mizzou in their opener. These are paydays, and that's necessary for when you don't have the huge monetary incomes that these schools have. It's necessary for the other schools' athletic departments to survive, and I hope that doesn't come to an end, but again, that's a matter of how things morph on.
When we come back, we'll wrap up Ned Talk about what we're going to watch on TV this afternoon. It's Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Ned just startled me before we opened up the microphones and said that Oakland is likely to continue to play in Oakland next season. That is a recipe for Major League Baseball disaster.
I don't really think they have an option because, number one, the minor league park in Las Vegas has not been reconstructed for Major League purposes yet. Whether or not that would take a long time, I don't know. But what wouldn't take a long time is the A's would have to pay off the 1-year lease that they have with the Oakland Alameda County folks, and that they probably don't want to do that. He said, let's just play here. We'll exercise the one-year option on there, and then we're out of there.
And then the attendance will be horrible.
It's not very good right now.
It's not. Well, it's not really good right now. I mean, you have to think Major League Baseball is doing really well if their attendance is up, I think, about 9%.
9%. But
And
Oakland's
attendance,
not one of them.
Oakland's attendance is probably down 60% because, the fans have no reason to go to the game.
I doubt they get 10,000 people in there per day.
And they're terrible. They're just a terrible baseball team. Good chance to lose 100 games this season. 31-80. Run differential. Alec brought this up. I won't steal his thunder. -273. that is a bad baseball team.
A little perspective for us Cardinal fans. For as bad as this year has felt, it's not that bad.
Oh, no. Well, no team fits into that. Maybe the New York Mets of 1962 with 40 and 120, 40 wins, 120 losses. But I'll tell you now, Oakland, they have a modicum. It's not a great deal, but a modicum of talent on that ball club. They can play. They play the Cardinals in 3 games coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Cardinals better win all 3 of those games.
Oh, they'll have to sweep that series.
They have to win those games. Well, it's just the way it is, and it's just goes back to our larger conversation that we're always having about the haves and the have-nots in sports, whether it be college sports or whether it be NFL, NBA, MLB. There's a lot of that's going on right now, the disparity in franchises, and that unfortunately taints the game.
Well, it also is the reason that the A's – it may be a combined factor, but it's the reason that franchise is moving to Las Vegas. They haven't been good, number one, and number two, it may be a planned situation, a planned obsolescence, so to speak, because it paves the way for that move. But, hey, it's going to happen, so that's the way it'll be.
That's the reason why I love cornhole. It's pure.
All
right, Ned, what are you going to watch on TV this afternoon?
Well, I think probably a little bit of the Cardinals and the Colorado Rockies this afternoon, but I do have the obligatory mowing to do. So
okay. I feel like you should join one of those mowing leagues.
Except that mine's not a power mower.
Oh.
I'm the power. Yeah, and that's not a lot of power. Again.
But you have a small yard, though, right?
Oh, yeah, very small.
Yeah. What about you, Alec?
Oh, I'll be watching some Cardinals, but I was up late getting in from the game yesterday and up early watching some of that World Cup, so it'll probably be nap, if I had to guess.
You're such a youngster. I know. I did the same things myself at times. I can remember driving back from a concert overnight. And now it's just I won't go.
It's getting
I have to come back.
It's
I'm
getting
not
harder. I would go to games for quite a few years. I've done a lot of the day trips, but every year I feel it a little more.
Come on, you're only 32?
I don't want to tell you.
You're
30. He's just 30 years old.
31.
Right? 31.
I'm
Okay,
right in the
sorry.
middle of your guys'
All right.
You get up with me. Good Lord.
All right. You missed this riveting conversation, you want to hear it, you can download the podcast through our website at 1047thecave.com. Look it up on wherever you find your podcast at. It is Ned Talk. Ned, Alec, I'll see you guys Sunday, 10 a.m. That's when we'll be on the air because we have a Chiefs broadcast. It'll start at noon. Thanks to Corbin Campbell, Brian Tyndall, Mike the intern, Nick Fury. We'll see you guys next Sunday.
104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield.